The night I finally understood what was happening, nothing dramatic occurred. No shouting, no slammed doors, no harsh words, just stillness. Not the kind of stillness that feels peaceful. The kind that settles over you when a truth you've been avoiding finally takes root in every corner of your mind. It's the silence that speaks louder than words ever could. The kind of quiet that forces your thoughts to align with reality, whether you're ready for it or not. That night, the stillness wasn't just an absence of noise, it was an all-encompassing presence. It filled the room, weighed down every breath, and made every small sound, the hum of the fridge, the distant bark of a dog, the tick of a clock, feel sharper, more pronounced. I could feel the world slowing, time stretching as if it were reluctant to let me go until I faced what I had been avoiding for months. She sat across from me on the couch, knees pulled close, phone in her hands. The soft glow lit her face in a way that seemed familiar, yet foreign. Every few seconds, her lips curved into a smile I hadn't caused in months. Quiet, personal, secretive. Like I had been standing outside a room I once knew, watching someone else live inside it. Her posture was casual, relaxed, but there was a weight in her shoulders that hadn't been there before, subtle yet undeniable. It spoke of distance, of unshared thoughts, of moments lived elsewhere, moments from which I was excluded. I could see the faint lines of worry or pretense around her eyes, the slight twitch in her fingers as she scrolled. Every movement told a story she didn't intend for me to understand, yet I understood anyway. I could feel the years of comfort and trust we had built together slipping away in the span of a few heartbeats, unnoticed by her, yet unmistakable to me. The television played in the background, a show we had seen 100 times. Laugh tracks, dialogue, background noise meant to fill empty moments. But between us, there was distance, heavy, thick, tangible. I could almost see it suspended in the air, an invisible wall that kept our hearts apart, even though our bodies remained in the same room. The noise of the TV, which once brought us laughter and familiarity, now felt like a mockery of what we had lost. Every joke, every scene that used to make us laugh together now reminded me of how disconnected we had become. It was the same show we had watched countless times, yet nothing about it felt the same. The laughter wasn't ours anymore. It was hers alone. I asked a simple question. Neutral, calm, controlled. "Who are you texting?" My voice didn't tremble, didn't carry accusation. It was flat, almost casual, as though I was asking about the weather. I needed to hear her say something, anything, but I didn't need a fight. I needed truth. She didn't look up, didn't hesitate. "Just someone I know." 2 words, smooth, too clean. And in that instant, something inside me stopped searching for reassurance. Not anger, not sadness, awareness. A sharp, piercing clarity settled over me like ice water. And once awareness arrives, there's no turning back. It doesn't sneak away quietly. It doesn't allow doubt to linger. It arrives, undeniable, leaving your mind with one task: acknowledge it or destroy yourself in denial. Before all this, she had been my safe place, not in a dramatic, cinematic way, but in quiet, ordinary moments that meant everything. A glance across the room while cooking. A shared cup of coffee on a weekend morning. Comfort, routine, trust, and plans that assumed tomorrow would be like today. I remembered the little things, how she used to hum softly while washing dishes, how she'd leave notes in the fridge or text me mid-afternoon just to say she was thinking of me. These things felt mundane at the time, but they were the glue that held us together. Those moments, once so trivial, now replayed in my mind like evidence of a world I could no longer touch. We didn't live a picture-perfect life. No exotic vacations, no carefully curated Instagram moments, no illusions. But we had familiarity, stability, a small world we had built together. She would call me without reason, sometimes just to hear my voice. Sometimes silence stretched between us, and that silence felt like connection, like an invisible thread keeping us together, even when the world demanded distraction. I remembered nights lying on the couch, the TV muted, just talking about nothing and everything at the same time. The way her hand would brush against mine unconsciously, or how we'd find comfort in simply sharing space. Those days seemed like a lifetime ago. We spoke about the future as if it were guaranteed. Where we would live, what we would do, the tiny details that only make sense when you believe someone will still be there tomorrow. I shared things I had never shared with anyone. Insecurities, doubts, fears, vulnerabilities I thought were safe in her hands. And that's why betrayal cuts so deep. Not for what is done, but because of what they know, because of the trust they break, because they have the power to hurt you in ways that no stranger ever could. I thought about how many nights I had confided in her, how many moments I had allowed myself to be raw, and how that rawness was now a weapon she didn't even know she wielded. The shift didn't come suddenly. If it had, I would have noticed sooner. I would have protected myself. But this kind of change creeps in quietly, patiently, stealthily. She became busy, distracted. Her phone mattered more than our conversations. She stopped asking how my day went, stopped noticing when I struggled, and each time I noticed, I blamed myself. Maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I was overthinking. Lies you tell yourself to avoid facing truth that hurts too much. Nights were the hardest. I would lie awake, replaying her words, her smiles, her small gestures, trying to convince myself that I was wrong, that I was paranoid. But deep down, a small voice whispered the truth I refused to admit aloud. One night, I spoke up. "You seem distant lately." My voice carried just enough concern to be noticed, just enough calm to avoid confrontation. She smiled that gentle, calm smile, the one that makes you doubt your own instincts. "You're imagining things," she said. I believed her. Trusting her was easier than questioning the life I thought I had built. But every fiber of me wanted to trust my instincts, to challenge the lie, to demand honesty. I chose silence instead. But then came the first undeniable sign. No fight, no argument. She left her phone on the table, unlocked, screen down. That never happened. I told myself not to overreact, respect boundaries, trust her. And then the screen lit up. A name I didn't recognize, a message preview that froze my chest. "Thinking about you today." I didn't touch the phone. I didn't need to. Something inside me quietly cracked. A small piece of my world shifted, and I felt the weight of betrayal press against my chest. When she returned, she grabbed it as if instinct moved before thought. She didn't meet my eyes. She didn't need to. That moment told me everything. I didn't confront her. I didn't accuse her. I didn't demand explanations. I smiled, because anger would have given her time to cover her tracks. I chose patience, observation, quiet calculation. Every small gesture, every glance, every hesitation became a puzzle piece I collected silently, carefully, for a revelation that didn't need dramatics. Nights became my laboratory. Moments became evidence. Her small actions spoke louder than any words could. From that night on, I noticed everything. Her words felt measured, her laughter borrowed. She reacted more to her phone than to me. She carried it everywhere. Kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, like a lifeline I wasn't allowed to touch. I didn't test her, didn't trap her. I just observed, and watching hurt more than arguing ever could. Her excuses repeated like clockwork. "I'm tired. Work is stressful. I need space." Space. A dangerous word when it replaces closeness that once defined a relationship. Then inconsistencies appeared. Stories didn't match. Timelines shifted. Names appeared too often. One evening, she mentioned a place I had never heard of. I asked casually who she was with. She paused, just for a second, and that second said everything. "Friends," she said, Always friends, never names, never details. She was still there physically, still shared meals, still spoke my name, but emotionally, she had checked out. I tried harder. She pulled back. I opened up. She closed down. And then it hit me. I wasn't scared of losing her anymore. I was scared of losing myself by staying silent, by ignoring what I had always known deep down. Acceptance came slowly. Calm followed. My chest stopped racing. My mind stopped searching for answers. I was no longer confused. I was still, and stillness meant I had stopped hoping. I stopped chasing, stopped expecting. I waited. Let her believe she was in control. People reveal everything when they feel power. She tried to pull me back in, cooked dinner, played music we used to love, lit candles, smiled like old times. "Do you still love me?" she asked. I paused. I said, "I care." Care without attachment, care that shows self-respect. That landed harder than anger ever could. Days later, a message appeared on my phone. She said, "You already know. I didn't realize she was with someone." No drama, no excuses, just truth. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Closure doesn't need conversation. Looking back, I realize the quietest betrayals are the loudest. They're in the small shifts, the look in someone's eyes, the hesitation before a word, the subtle preference for a device over your presence. They accumulate until they occupy every corner of your mind, reshaping your perception of ordinary life. And yet, it is in these betrayals that you also find yourself. Because when the world that once seemed certain dissolves, you are left with a raw clarity about who you are, what you deserve, and how much weight your silence can carry. I spent weeks walking through our home with the same eyes I once used to see love. Every item, every corner, every smell became a reflection of absence. I touched the mug she had left on the counter, felt the warmth of a seat she had just vacated. Little things, the blanket she had folded neatly, the jacket she left draped over a chair, mocked me with reminders of her physical presence and emotional absence. Time stretched in those moments. Hours became days. Days became a slow, methodical assessment of memory and feeling. And in the spaces she no longer occupied, I began to understand the contours of my own heart, the edges I had ignored while I sought answers outside myself. I remembered our first apartment, the tiny kitchen where I had burned pasta more times than I could count, and she had laughed instead of scolding me. I remembered the nights we stayed up too late, talking about nothing, about everything, sharing our dreams, laughing at our fears, making plans for a life that now felt like someone else's story. Each recollection carried a pang of grief, but also a sense of ownership over what was real and what was gone. Memory became a double-edged sword, cutting pain and clarity with equal precision. Eventually, the truth settled into a quiet rhythm, like a pulse beneath the surface of my life. I no longer flinched at notifications. I no longer searched for signs, for confessions, for proof. They were irrelevant. I had all the proof I needed, and yet, peace came not from confrontation, but from understanding. Understanding that love, trust, and intimacy are not obligations to be demanded, but gifts freely given. And when those gifts are diverted, withheld, or broken, the only true path forward is to honor your own value. To acknowledge the hurt, but not allow it to define you. There was one night when I realized the finality of it all. She was asleep beside me, soft breathing, the light from the street lamp spilling across her face. I could have touched her, whispered, begged, or pleaded, but I didn't. My hand rested on the edge of the blanket, steady. I felt no desperation, no anger, no sadness that demanded release. Only understanding. That quiet, piercing clarity I had encountered months before returned, not as pain, but as a calm, sovereign awareness. Some truths are not negotiated. Some people cannot be persuaded, and some love cannot survive the small betrayals that accumulate in silence. And so I let her sleep. And I stayed awake, watching her sleep, thinking of the life we had shared, the small, ordinary acts of love that were now ghosts. And in that quiet, I finally understood. Endings are not always loud. They do not always demand confrontation or tearful declarations. Some endings come softly in the pause of a conversation, the glance away from a phone, the unremarkable moments that accumulate into irrefutable truth. Some endings are so quiet that they feel like the world itself has stopped, waiting for you to acknowledge the finality. I did. I acknowledged it. I did not yell. I did not plead. I did not cry. I simply acknowledged it. And in that acknowledgement, the world resumed its rhythm. The fridge hummed, the dog barked, the clock ticked, and for the first time in months, I breathed freely again. I had been betrayed, yes, but I had also survived. And in that survival, I found the strange, quiet triumph that only comes when you see clearly, accept fully, and honor yourself unflinchingly.